Thanks, Nikki. Great to be here. Yesterday's World Climate Report showed us a dramatic development. Mark Bakchiko already showed the Earth. I want to ask Lotte on stage. Lotte, a young girl here as a symbol for the future generation, as a symbol for those we have to care about. So it's all about us, and it's all about the future, about the human beings, about our children. Thanks, applause for our future. I have to say that, and Al Gore states that we had the 10 hottest years in records that led to major weather disasters in Europe. You see there in Greece of the hottest years on records. And 2012 was statistically tied with 2005, the hottest year ever measured. 2012 was a year for the record books because we had globally the hottest September ever recorded. The Arctic reached its all-time lowest daily extent on record, and we had in the United States, for example, the hottest year in record history. The daily heat records got higher and higher, and we had nearly 5,000 records broken. Australia, as a symbol, as a pars pro toto, which is a very hot country, had to add 2 new colors to their map because the temperature increased so much. I'm aware that you know about global warming, but especially, as I said, when you look at yesterday's World Climate Report, all those facts have to be repeated. They have to be made clear again, and that's Al Gore's vision, and it really disturbs and annoys and hurts him that there are in the meantime, especially in the United States of America, so many deniers. People who say, we don't know if it's really true concerning global warming. It might be, but it's not sure. And he wants to make clear again and again, in a repetition of reality, that global warming is a very traumatic fact. You all know how global warming exists and how global warming develops with the solar radiation, the radiation that is absorbed by the Earth and warms it, and some energy is radiated back, and some warms it and stays in there. And I like very much this slide of Al Gore's climate leader presentation because it shows how deniers would like to work. Our beloved Earth, with about 15 degrees, and then the Venus with nearly 500 degrees, where you could say, yeah, okay, that's clear, the Venus, it's nearer the sun. So that's a clear explanation. But then you have the Mercury with 167 degrees Celsius. Why is that? Because the CO2 concentration is bigger on the Venus, and it's all about CO2, which is unfortunately caused by us. You see that the global carbon emission from fossil fuels rised and rised again in the last years. We all know where greenhouse gases come from, but I want to repeat it. Melting permafrost, coal mining, coal plants, oil production, forest burning, crop burning, industrial agriculture, landfills, land transportation, etc. And never forget and be aware, although you might know it, the linkage between the climate crisis and the increased frequency and severity of extreme weather events is as CO2 increases, so does the temperature. You have the CO2 concentration of the last 100 years, you have the temperature of the last 100 years, and you see how it is connected. It leads to a global ocean heat content that is higher and causes catastrophes like the Hurricane Sandy. And also, insurance companies who have to pay for the catastrophes say that climate change is the cause. Let's not forget that. And it leads, as temperature increases, the oceans evaporate more moisture in the sky. We face many dramatic increases of severe weather events. So with each additional degree of temperature, the atmosphere's capacity to hold water vapor increases by 7%, which means that the big snowstorms and rainfalls gets bigger and bigger. You might think that this is a picture of Hieronymus Bosch, but it's reality. So the rainstorms and snowstorms, as said, are getting bigger and more intense, causing bigger and more frequent floods. Just to show you, and you remember all those pictures in Turkey, in Pakistan, which is connected to the catastrophe that this is a nuclear country, so it's destabilized. So weather, it's not only about the weather, it's also about security and international policy. You have all over the world to face a development that should make us really worried. On the Philippines, in China, India, in Taiwan, North Korea, Russia, Mozambique, Argentina, Greece. So as global temperature continue to increase, the Earth water cycle intensifies even more. So you have those floods, those snowstorms, those rainfalls, but then on the other hand, those droughts. Those droughts whom you see like here in Europe, in Spain, in South Korea, in North Korea, in China. Droughts, extremely dry areas and red areas also have a very high rise of droughts. Also drought condition in the United States of America, you see there are more and more red areas. So climate model projections suggest us that it's not just an episode. It's not something that happens at the moment. We face a mega drought, a multi-decade period of significantly below average precipitation. It's reality. Like here in Brazil, the Amazon, which has always been a problematic field in environmental awareness, droughts. Drought reduces the vegetation at the Amazon. And what happens when there is droughts? There are more fires in Spain, in Portugal, in Montenegro, in Australia. So hotter years typically have more fires. So if you have an increase of droughts, which is a reason of global warming, you have an increase of fires. If you have an increase of fires, you have many regions in the world who are affected by this problem, and you have to think of all those millions of people, of their home, of their children, of their families, of their security in the United States, but all over the world. So it does no difference which man is affected. And you see the development of global droughts from May 2012 to May 2013, where are some exceptional droughts. So that there are hundreds of millions affected by these droughts, which is reality. And we face a drought intensification within the next years. And when I read tomorrow morning about this climate report, I was even more proud to be an Al Gore climate leader, and they have the chance to be in touch with so many communities to show again this condition and the development we face. So until the next 20 years, you see in the red areas how many more drought areas there will be in the world. Then it gets more and more within the next decades, and by the end of the century, you see how many areas are affected. It's not only Africa, it's our continent, it's Europe, and it's the USA, it's South America. You see the drought condition here in our area, how it develops. Austria. So also Austria is affected, you know. It's not something that we might be solitary. There's not a question of solidarity to Africa or any other nation in the world. It affects our direct future. France. Switzerland, Turkey, and many other countries in the world. The drought intensification and the floods, they together are major problems caused by global warming. But it's not only about the floods, it's not only about the droughts, it's also again by the problem that you all know of the Arctic. You see that the Arctic temperatures were in a normal average, and suddenly in the last years we have an extent of the Arctic Sea since 2010 in melting. So it goes down, it's a new record low. You see 1984, you remember that problem, and you see what's reality last year and what happened to the Arctic. You see the Coracle Glacier in Peru in the 70s, and you see it today. Ice that took 1,600 years to form has melted in just 25 years. This leads to a salinization and to infertility of land. And so the entire cycle of our world is affected. The food supply, the water, and the global health. And if we don't act, this global system, this global circle will break. Food supply, which is especially here in Austria a very important topic in the way we live. But when you see in Illinois, when people say farming, it's like farming in hell. When you see Serbia, which is just a couple of hundred kilometers south of us, Bulgaria, Romania, and the concrete costs of those heat waves, when we think of our beloved country, France, I'm sure everybody of you loves this country. You love Paris, you love to go there, and you say, I like to live like God in France. The maize production has decreased of 30%. The fruit harvest declines. The hay and grain yields dropped 30%. And even now, which might be a reason for many of you to fight global warming finally, the wine production in Europe was the lowest in 10 years. So, a complete loss of money. That's what Mark Pacheco also mentioned. It's not only about idealism. It's about a business. It's about jobs. It's about money. The global warming means that the business is affected also in a negative way. It's also leading to an increase in plant pests and diseases. And the water cycle, just to repeat, 11% domestic use, 19% industrial use, and 70% agricultural use of water. You see the increased need of water use. The Middle East and North Africa region is the world's richest in oil and gas reserves, and it's poorest in renewable water and arable land, which needs to facts like this. China, and global health. The climate change is disrupting natural ecosystems in a way that is making life better for infectious diseases, and tropical diseases are on the move, and they are coming to Europe. So that's not only a thing about Africa or Latin America, it's about us in every region of the world that we have to face. And it leads to funny situations, if I may say that, like that people call 9/11 because of mosquito bites. Because people get anxious, they get frightened, could a mosquito bite kill me? So you see that also the global health system is disrupted. We know the pollen problem. I'm sure many of you or your friends have problems with pollen. The grains of pollen in the year 2000 will raise so much in the next decades, and we know we have to change. Also, and I want to mention this slide because Pater Johannes Paul-Chavan is here, every religion mentions the need to fight for the environment. Islam, Hinduism, Judaism, and Christianity. Every religion is here on the same road to protect Earth. And that's what I said, freaks Al Gore out, that the industry, of course, strikes back, especially the coal industry. And they strike back with billions and billions of marketing money. And so you see here from 1921 how clean coal wanted to be marketed. That's nearly 100 years ago, but you see it then in 1945, clean coal, 1974, clean coal, 1979, clean coal. Then it continues, 88 clean coal, 2009 clean coal, and even 2012 clean coal, now is the time. So they don't fear to say it is not really happening. It is not reality. The deniers are on their way, and we have to be aware of that. I quote Winston Churchill, who says, "The truth is incontrovertible." Those who deny the existence of the climate crisis often claim there is no scientific consensus, we don't know exactly, it might be, but it's not sure. But every National Academy of Science of every major country in the world confirms this global warming. Every major Academy of Science. And those who deny it, none. The National Academies say that we need an urgent action to address this problem. And you see all those numbers of scientific consensus to fight global warming and climate change. We also have some solutions. Mark Pacheco told about it in the concrete way of the state of Massachusetts. And I want to finish with a positive look to the future, which gives us the strength and the power and the motivation to see that there are solutions, like this boy from Africa who built a windmill on his own in Malawi. He's now studying at Harvard. You see the world's largest wind turbine in Denmark, the wind facility in Massachusetts. You see Turkey, who plans to change. You see other countries like Kenya or Morocco, India, even China, Mexico, Oregon, USA, solar facilities. You have an increase of solar facilities. You see that the production is rising, and also like the costs are declining if you have more investments. So you have a greater network of renewable energy network. You see it in many countries, from the Philippines, the solar farm, and even the Vatican. So we have God on our side. Thank you.
Yeah.